Well, hello there, you amazing, amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. I hope you are all well on this fabulous, fantastic, frisky Friday. I was thinking about other words that began with F, and they just went off into the ether. Anyway, I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. Look, what you're going to learn in this video is that I think I've solved the Jay Slater case. That's right, the Jay Slater case. And look, if you've come here because you want to listen to somebody who has fully watched Potato Cam and taken from that Jay was attacked on the beach, or you want to listen to someone who has squinted, has zoomed in 500 times on the metal in the lighter, on the towel or blanket photograph, and taken from that if you again squint and zoom in, you can just about see Lucy's forehead, then you're in the wrong place. But if you want to listen to someone who has watched everything, listened to everything, and fully understood what is being said, and listen to someone who feels that this is 100% the most likely version of events in the Jay Slater case, then you've come to the right place. Because look, I was listening to something on Tales of Life channel. If you haven't seen Tales of Life channel, please head over there, go and listen to him. He's a funny guy, and he released a video yesterday. Now, I'm not going to play that video. It's at the beginning of his video is about 30 minutes long, but it's at the beginning segment. And what it is, some of you will have heard it already, perhaps forgotten about it. Some of you won't have, but it's from the Scottish guy who released the primary footage, which is showing Jay Slater in the club. And what this guy goes on to talk about is the fact that he had filmed that footage. He was just filming the crowd, and obviously after Jay Slater went missing, he had gone back over that footage and pulled segments of it from his footage that showed Jay. And he goes on to talk about Jay, but there is one specific thing that he mentions which is very, very important. And I feel that that single piece of information, that if people actually listens to what he's saying, and I'm about to tell you a story because it's based, my understanding of this comes from a place where I've experienced the exact same. I've lived it, and I know exactly how it can affect you. And look, this doesn't mean that people walk away from this scot-free. It absolutely doesn't. And it would also prove that there are people around Jay Slater and what happened to him that are 100% lying. But here we go. Right. So he specifically says that he sees Jay Slater, and Jay Slater's a mess. So he says that Jay Slater's a mess, but he specifically makes reference to the fact that Jay appears to be on pills. And it's important that you understand the difference between that and an alternative, because we know in the recreational world, when it comes to narcotics, there is an abundance of things that can likely be taken, but it's this specific thing what makes the difference. This specific thing, and I'll tell you for why. Now, I know I only look 21. I'm not. I'm 44 years old, and when we was younger, we liked to party. We really did like to party. And sometimes we did things that parents would probably frown upon. And off the back end of that, we have gone to beach parties, and we have sat on the side of the water and looked across the sea and watched battleships fighting in the distance. And if you know, you know. Okay, so what I'm saying is that these specific things can very well change the way that you see the world around you. Now, this guy makes reference to the fact that Jay Slater, this was around 1 to 1:30 that he made this kind of, this is what I think. Now, what I will say, as a side note, I do have to say this because, again, I want to be fair, I want to be balanced, and that is that the guy kind of says he's not specifically filming Jay, he's just filming the crowd. He is filming the crowd, and he obviously is able to look at what he's filmed and see what is happening. So I don't know whether he interacted, because that it's not 100% clear whether he did actually interact with Jay. It wouldn't appear so. So he has taken this information from what he has filmed and extrapolated beyond that to seemingly conclude that that's why Jay is behaving the way that he is behaving. Because I did think to myself, well, on one hand, you're just saying you're filming everybody, but then you seem to have a lot of information about Jay, and I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, well, you can't say that you weren't filming him, but then seemingly know a lot about how he was. But again, it's one of those, when you know, when you're in that situation, you're in those surroundings, you can very well look around and look at what people are doing, how they're behaving, and understand exactly why they're behaving and doing the things that they're doing. Water, for instance, and drinking bottles of water is highly indicative of backing up the statement that this guy makes. But why is it important? And here's why it's important. Because Jay Slater goes back to this Airbnb with these two people. And the reality is, again, his behaviour in terms of trusting people, getting into a car with people who were perhaps unfamiliar with him, is completely, again, indicative of backing up the statement that this guy makes. You know, the love everyone. It's reminiscent of, you know, John Lennon days. And, you know, he would have gone back here and he would have likely felt that he was going on to carry on partying and what have you. But the question is, did he carry on partying? Was he doing that past 1:30, 2:00, 3:00? And why is that important? Again, because we have spoken about trying to understand why Jay Slater would have done the things that he did. If Jay Slater was compos mentis, and I say this a lot, and I know it freaks people out, and people love it, but that's a very, very important question to ask. Because if you believe someone is 100% compos mentis, then that is not what you would expect of somebody in that position to do the things that we are being led to believe Jay Slater did. And that's when the likes of Brad and his phone call and Lucy and her phone call come into play. Because they Brad specifically makes it look like Jay is okay. Lucy not so much. And it also then brings into question the phrase bitten by a cactus. That phrase has always stood out because people have quite rightly said you don't get bitten by a cactus. And people have gone off from that on a bit of a tangent, saying that cactus could have been something else, it could be trying to cover someone else, but it also could be, again, indicative of someone who is under the influence of what this person has specifically said that he felt that Jay Slater was under the influence of. Because someone who's under the influence of this would absolutely 100% likely say that they have been bitten by a cactus. And they could very well believe that they have indeed been bitten by a cactus. And again, that is extremely important. Because if Jay was in a chemically altered state of mind, then everything that we've heard that he did and how it ended up starts to make sense. The problem in this case was always about believing that there was a phone call between Jay and two of his friends, and they seemingly make out like he was fine. Do you know what I mean? Again, Brad especially, to state that he was fine. And maybe this is why we're seeing the sleepless nights of Brad and the fact that he looks like shit when he's having his interview and sketchy as fuck. And Lucy being very, very defensive of her actions. And seemingly this was about, right from the start, distancing themselves from blame and putting it on to Jay. And again, maybe this was a little bit of guilt somewhere because they knew that they had a part to play in what had happened to Jay. in terms of what he was doing recreationally and their involvement in doing so. But I put it to you now, I've never believed that Jay Slater, from a perspective of being compos mentis, would have left that B&B, made the decisions he made, did the things that he did, and just walked off a cliff. That does not make any sense whatsoever. Just doesn't. And when I try and factor him being, I'm going to say it again, compos mentis into that story, that version of events, it falls apart, and it falls apart very quickly. But that single fact that Jay Slater could have been under this specific influence makes that entire story seem very, very likely. He wouldn't have been able to maneuver around that terrain safely. He would have had an enhanced state of self-belief in what he was capable of doing. And in fact, the way he saw what he was handling would not have been as that was. It would have been very easy for him to be able to walk out across those plains and believe it to be completely flat. He could have seen it as a field of beautiful flowers. It's very, very important to understand that. Again, I've been there. I've seen it. I know how this works. But again, what I'm saying is I'm not trying to remove the guilt of other people, because I feel that if that is the case, then that is again indicative of people lying, absolutely lying, and not being truthful about why Jay ended up the way he did. But again, are there clues? He came here alive, he left here alive. That is ignoring everything else. It's almost like saying, well, he got here and he left. But what bits did you actually leave out? But there we go. Let me know down below what you think. But is that actually what happened? Is that why Jay ended up dead at the bottom of a ravine? I'll catch you all in the next one.